Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness, where we will be sharing insights into the world of mental health and wellness as we explore traditional medicine and holistic healing options. It's time to have new conversations about mental health. Join Mara James, the founder and CEO of the Hugs for Life Healing Center, as she guides us along this journey. And now, let's talk wellness.
Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness. I am your host, Mara James, and I want to say thank you for joining us for today's conversation. During Let's Talk Wellness, we focus on healing, understanding, growth, and spirituality. This is part of the Hugs for Life Healing Center, a subsidiary of the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a nonprofit where we're devoted to supporting mental health awareness and providing resources for children and their families. As the founder of these organizations, I have the great joy of collaborating with an amazing team of people to bring healing to children and their families around the world. You can find all of our information at elfempowers.org, and you can find the link in the show information. Now, let's talk wellness with today's guest, Tara Ott. Tara is an intuitive healer and multidimensional spiritual guide. And for her day job, she is a manager in the mental health department for veterans in Texas. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my
gosh. So excited to be here.
It is such an honor. I was looking forward to this day for so long. I'm trying to think about how far back we've met. I can't remember. Was it months, years?
Gosh, it's probably been about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I think it maybe in May, it'll be 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We met from another mutual friend, and you've just been such a blessing in my life and such a blessing in so many other lives. So let me ask you, when did you first realize that you were intuitive?
It was probably in my 20s, where I had the memory of being 5 years old and hidden in a closet and knowing that spirit was with me to protect me and hold me. But, that memory didn't come back to me until about my mid-20s when I started to really open myself up to healing and, exploring the generational patterns of mental, physical, emotional, and substance abuse with my family. So, yeah.
Okay. And if you don't mind if I'm asking, what kicked off that journey when you were in your 20s?
It actually was, and this is the premises really of the work that I do for holding gatherings for women. It was that I learned and was God-given my husband, who has been able to hold me in a safe space to allow myself to unfold, to allow myself to heal, to allow myself to explore and express. And he's done it so unconditionally that that's really kind of what unlayered all of the trauma and allowed for the healing to happen. And, I didn't even come to this realization until just recently. I mean, I knew he was pivotal in my journey, but sometimes it takes a moment. You have to go back and reflect. And so he's been a blessing to just hold me in a safe space to allow for that journey to begin.
That is so beautiful. I always say God takes and God gives. For me personally, I feel like I had 0 for 2 parents. So God kind of took my parents, but I was also given my brother and my best friend, and then, my husband for the past 30 years. So, I feel like we have that.
I have to also say that there was my mother basically disowned me. And so it's like at the same time I crashed down to nothing and then was held in that space to really open up to heal. So
I'm so sorry. What age did that happen?
That was 40. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but so at
Well,
that point,
he had done it she had done it a few times. So, as a daughter, you go back, because well, for me anyways, my experience is I always, I love people unconditionally. And as that being my mother, I thought that relationship could be healed. And to a certain degree it was, although she has transitioned now, we've done more healing, communicating this way than when we both were here on the physical realm. But she really has been my teacher. She's been my catalyst and she's been my catalyst to embody my passion. So yeah.
wow.
And that's to heal the feminine relationships, heal our feminine relationships.
Absolutely. Well, I had to heal both mother and father. So with my mom, she passed about 22 years ago. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. We didn't have a great relationship. And I guess, after she passed, and when I started opening up spiritually and connecting with her through a medium, it was so beautiful and healing, and to actually get the apology. And, I didn't even know about healing and forgiveness when she was alive. That happened after. So definitely, I understand that whole thing. And to me, I know a lot of people don't believe in connecting with loved ones that have passed, but to me, it has been the most healing thing that could have happened with both of my parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Completely agree. I remember my mom, she had her moment and called me up just, and said, I want nothing to do with you. And meanwhile, my daughter and I were kicking in the kitchen, and I put my mom on speakerphone thinking nothing was going to happen. And my mom was in one of her spaces, and I just was like dumbfounded. And then a year and a half later, she passed, and we never spoke again. But I remember pulling over on the side of the freeway, and I was headed to Lake Hodges, which is outside of San Diego, right outside of San Diego. And it's a beautiful migration lake. And my mom loved birds. And I would go there to connect with her. And before she passed. But anyways, she passed. I pulled over on the side of the freeway, and I remember looking up to God and her, and I'd be like, we are going to heal this. We are going to heal this together. And that was like a declaration for, it doesn't matter where we are physically, that the power of spirit and the power of our divine connection with our loved ones and with our angels is pivotal, and has been pivotal in my journey to help other women. Yeah.
So let me understand. So you said a year and a half before she passed, you were on speakerphone, and your daughter actually heard what your mom was saying to you?
She did.
Wow. I mean, that, like, only God can make that up. That is beautiful that, your daughter, I'm sure, had compassion for you. And then you did not speak with your mother until after you didn't connect with her until after she passed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that she's since apologized?
She has. Yeah. And, I have learned more, I think, about her now that she's in more of her true essence. Sometimes we can get very clouded in our physical world and hers just happened to be with alcohol. And but all of that really was just because was masking and just didn't have maybe the safe space to explore the pain and the devastation and the trauma that she had in her life. And so now when we communicate, there's nothing between us. There is nothing, but like, it gives me goosebumps. It's such a divine connection, which we only dream of here on the physical world. And so, yeah.
And you say there's nothing between you, and I'm going to change it. There's only unconditional love between you, right?
True. And it's just so beautiful.
Like, it's true. Just so so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry that you went through the trauma. And I always say that hurt people, and your mom definitely was hurting. And she didn't have a team like we do that, you and I are out here, we're talking about our traumas that we experience so that we can be a light to others so that they can start their healing journey and we can hold a safe space for them.
Yes.
And before you talk about the women's groups, because I'm so excited to hear about that, I'd love to really hear about, if you could share with me and our guests, different modalities of healing that you experienced when you said to me, like around age 27, the real healing work began. Can you share with us what that looked like?
Yeah. Well, it started out with acupuncture. And within this acupuncture clinic, there was a psychic medium. Now, let me preface by saying that at this point, I thought I was atheist because at 18, I went to all these different churches and, explored these different religions, and I really could not find anything that I resonated with. And so then I, fast forward about 5 years and was receiving acupuncture for asthma, actually, and couldn't breathe. And, and that's our life force. So there was a psychic medium there. And when she started to explain to me what her idea of God was, and each of us being a star of God, a child of God, within the universe, within the sky, I was like, this is, there is something beyond me that I know that I believe in. And then I received, like tarot card readings and, psychic readings, and went and saw a shaman and, did some journeying. And, that's when the memories of my childhood, like when I was back at 5 years old in that closet. And when I knew that spirit was always, around me. And of course, chiropractic was part of my healing journey also. So, yeah.
Did you do talk therapy as well?
No, I did not.
Interesting. Yeah, I started.
I'm kind of always been kind of how should I say put this? A stubborn person. And, and so I'm also an Aquarian. So exploring the unknown for me and and I think this is one of the reasons why light language kind of fell through me, is because it's not necessarily a traditional modality. And so, yeah, talk therapy, I was like, no, everyone's doing it, so I'm not going to.
Oh, that's funny.
But I have no judgment. No judgment.
No, right. No, it just wasn't for you. Absolutely. And it's funny because we're going to discuss that light language, that bomb that you dropped in a minute. But for me, I didn't even know I had any issues to heal until I had my manic episode at 48. And I was meeting, and then I was heavily medicated, meeting with a therapist, and he kept saying, like, we almost lost you, almost lost you. And at that time, luckily, I was also meeting with a hypnotherapist who did a lot of talk therapy with me, but we could talk a little more spiritual and woo-woo. And I actually stopped seeing the regular therapist because to me, I didn't say this to him, but no, we didn't almost lose me. This was the plan for me. I needed to experience this. And, but so much of the therapy I do, like, it's not just sitting there talking and like, what do you think? And do you remember? I like it goes straight down into the point. Like, this is what's going on now. This is where it came from. This is how we heal it. So you dropped.
I think it's come a long ways too, because this was in the 90s. And so I think, talk therapy has really become very, very therapeutic, and is approached in many different ways.
Yes, and just being able to talk about things. My husband will refer a lot of his patients to me. He's an OB/GYN, and I'll talk to them and I start telling about my story. And I was molested as a little girl, and I didn't remember that until I was 52 years old. And they look at me with these wide eyes, and I think they're judging me. And actually, they said that happened to me too. I never told anybody. I was like, that's too much to hold in. So to just talk about it, to start releasing it, and then of course releasing the shame, the blame, the guilt, and all that is so powerful. So there's something, a lot of, I think it's Catholics that do the tongue, they speak in tongue. And what I loved about our first session with you, and I was definitely ready, I've done 8 years of healing when I was ready for you, and you do this beautiful light language. And I guess I would equate it similar but different to tongue. And it's such a beautiful, like, our souls know what's going on. So maybe if you want to tell everybody a little more what light language is.
Yeah. If I could just start with, like, kind of how it dropped through me, because I kept asking, I knew that I was meant to serve, and in particular serve women, because, I believe that our pain becomes our teacher. And because that was my most painful journey thus far, and hopefully I don't have to experience anything else to that level. But that I knew that was where I wanted to heal myself to begin with, and then to eventually hopefully be able to provide that to the world. And so I started with a women's group, and I thought, oh gosh, it was so out of my box. Like, no way was I going to go and sit and be with a bunch of women and be able to open up. But I'll tell you, Mara, when I sat down, and of course we're all sitting down in Indian circle, in an Indian style, in a circle on the floor, and there's this beautiful altar in the center of, like, these gems and these crystals and these tarot cards and flowers and plants and artwork. And it was the very first time that I actually felt like I was being heard and seen. I had never experienced such a sacred space before. And so I spent the next 3 years, like, just really diving in. Well, actually 2 years of my own stuff. And then of me participating. And then I joined a mastermind class where part of it was participation, part of it was holding space, and part of it was also leading. And that's really when I kind of stepped into my voice. And then I started holding my own women's gatherings. And at this same time, I started doing a very consistent meditation practice. And it was nothing guided. It was more just sitting with my soul. And I kept getting a hit of that I needed to hold this same space for someone else. So I did. And all of a sudden, like, my hands started to move. And so I started with sign language. And so I knew that there was this force of energy that was running through me. And so my hands were moving uncontrollably, and I'm like, what is happening? Oh my gosh, and then when I felt like when I was telling somebody that I was I've lost my mind. I literally felt like I was lost my mind. And then I kept hearing those surrender. And about a month later, sound started coming through me. And I just rattled as fast as it wasn't actually real beautiful, I don't think. It was literally just a bunch of sounds that nobody could make out. And I thought, okay, now I've really lost it. And mentally, I'm like, what is happening? But it was the power of surrendering and taking that time to be with my soul that allowed for this force of angelic energy to come through me. And I describe light language as simply just a frequency of energy. It just can either come through movement, through sign, which creates every way that we move, we create a ripple into the atmosphere, into the universe. And the same is with sound. The sound creates this ripple energy, and it hits directly into our cells, into our DNA, and it bypasses the linear mind. So we can't understand, because as soon as we start speaking in English or whatever our language is, our linear mind starts to, pick apart and place and put definition around it. So that's the power of it, that it's almost like doing sound bowls. It's this frequency that comes through and literally vibrates every cell in the body and can shift, activate, align, a new frequency. So
wow, just thinking about it, my whole body is like tingling. So
it's a little unfortunate, in my opinion, that there can be some old I don't really want to say judgment, but old boxes that have been put around this beautiful gift from God. And I think that we as collectively are opening up more and more to the power of sound and the power of the angelic energy coming through us.
I love that. I have so many more questions for you. We're going to take a really brief break and we'll be right back and we'll continue this conversation.
Thanks.
In these shifting and changing times, more and more lives are being impacted by mental health. The Extraordinary Lives Foundation, also known as ELF, is transforming the way people view and navigate mental health challenges. Their mission is to improve children's mental health and wellness and support families by providing educational tools, resources, and awareness events. ELF encourages families to recognize symptoms, overcome the stigma, and reach out for help. Through prevention, early intervention, and holistic treatment, we believe many of the big problems facing today's youth can be transformed within a generation. Extraordinary Lives Foundation is excited to offer the Hugs for Life Healing Center, growing a worldwide network of approved holistic healers and bridging the gap between traditional and complementary healing options. Visit the Extraordinary Lives Foundation website at www.elfempowers.org to find out more about their resources and events. Together, we can change the conversation around mental health. We hope that you're enjoying today's Let's Talk Wellness podcast. And if you have a topic that you would like us to explore, we would love to hear from you. Simply email us at info@elfempowers.org. That's info@elfempowers.org. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Wellness. I'm your host, Mara James, and today we have our guest, Tara Ott. Hi, Tara. Okay, continuing with the light language. So I know this is definitely very foreign and out there to people. Do you think that someone could channel, I'm going to use the word, right, light language if they're not open and like all of a sudden be locked up in a mental institution?
Can the light language come through at any point during this, or is this just for English?
Absolutely, it can. Whatever spirit wants it to do.
Okay. Dikara ko na ashina akapada korikere irkabar korshbere go yermar ko akaligaraka egena kashumere ko bere go yerkari menako bere kira ha ha shika I get ha the what I am receiving is that really the soul and the heart need to be ready to communicate and to receive and channel through. So I fully believe every single one of us have the ability to connect, to channel, to receive our own divine messages, however that is. Mine just happens to be, through light language and sound, through frequency. But it can happen when you're driving down the road and a message pops in your head. It doesn't have to be so yeah. And so I think that because I'm a very sensitive soul, So I feel a lot. I am a feeler. And my heart has always been so incredibly open. This in turn my personal experience has been that I can sometimes be too open. And this leads me into like what I do for my 8 to 5 job, working in the mental health field for veterans. Of course, I leave these two worlds very separate. Well, I've had to learn to leave these worlds separate, because when I walked into the mental health world of high PTSD, high suicide, high trauma rates, abuse, I could feel everything because my heart was so open. And so really this last year has taught me that there's a reason why a door opens and closes. And I've had to practice closing my heart, and yet, of course, still being compassionate and understanding. But when you ask the question about being put into a mental institute and stuff like that, I can definitely see how that could happen. Because if we're not using the tool or communicating or listening, I should say, listening to our guidance, that we can overdo it for our physical being and mental being and emotional states.
Right. And I always say with mental health challenges, there's a gift and a curse. And, I can imagine somebody hearing you speak light language. And if you're aware of what was going on and grounded, it's one thing. But if not, someone could just, they think they're in psychosis or some type of
Yeah.
And you are working with the mental health department for veterans. Are they mostly men that you're working with?
Yep, probably 80%. 80% men, about 20% women.
Right. And it's so funny because I just see that you have this divine calling and your heart lies with women.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is kind of a stepping ground for you to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I definitely, no, there's no question about that. But I do have to say that, this has been, I spent the first part of my journey really healing that feminine relationship and learning to listen and hold space and communicate and express to the fullest ability and to receive from other women. And there was such a beautiful divine balance where I worked, because I created that. I wanted that. And the last year and a half really has thrown me into a whole nother world, a teaching moment. I'm really in a student space right now, in regards to my 8 to 5, because it's a little bit more challenging to create that balance, or that sacred listening safe space, especially due to the level of trauma, and level of mental health issues, but also being the masculine. And so I think it's I don't have this is what I've learned, but I do know that this is definitely a key part to my passion, which is hence why I'm, here with you in your foundation, in regards to mental health and balancing that and finding harmony with that and finding acceptance with that, and trying to help men especially not have shame or guilt around showing up in the mental health department and asking for help. And there's so much stigma around it, and that men are supposed to be these macho, hold it all in, don't cry. And I'm strengthening new forms of communication and new forms of presence by being with the men who have been to war and been in very traumatic situations. So I'm blessed for this learning lesson.
I love that. And yeah, right, for anybody to be vulnerable enough, but sometimes men have a stronger ego and they're supposed to be tougher and pull up their boots. So to guide them to be creating a safe space for them to be vulnerable is so beautiful that you're able to do that. Would you say then for women, there was something different or in particular that you see, like when you're hosting these this women's circles?
The universal character or the universal aspect in regards to mental health, in my experience, and being around, whether it's male or female, although I prefer the female because because I am female, but the number one factor is creating a safe space. And as I spoke about at the beginning of our talk, and my husband holding a safe space for me to heal and to transform and to express and to release and to fully embody the true essence of who I am, I believe that holding a safe space is the number one factor that in my experience of healing, of welcoming the pros and the cons, the blessings and the trials with mental health. And you know, I had an amazing mentor that literally the very first moment I showed up there, I sat there going, I've never experienced this in my life, of this level of safety from females. And you know, there was no fixing. There was no answers provided, nothing. It was simply just holding space for that soul, for that share from the heart to be held with absolutely no judgment, no shame, no guilt, nothing. That I would say that is the number one thing, is finding, as women, I think we all want to feel and be our fullest self. And safety is by far, I think, the number one thing that I could, if you could find safety in one friend, find safety in, you know, your journaling, find safety with a tribe online, with a tribe, your yoga tribe, you know, whoever that is, a place, a safe space where you can show up and be your true, authentic soul self is the number one factor. So, and through that, once you got that, and I think that that's what I loved about holding women's circles. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was hold that container, that where everybody knew that when they showed up, there was a sisterhood that was unconditional love and harmony and grace and held with integrity. And but through that, I think this is where we remember who we are. We remember where we came from. We remember who we used to be. We remember who we want to be. And then once we remember, then we can reclaim, and we can reclaim and embody, you know, whether it's the artist, the dancer, the financial part of that likes to do numbers, or whether it's the person who likes to talk or public speaking, or, you know, whatever it is, that's where we get to actually express it in a safe space and embody it. So yeah.
And are most of the women you meet with, because I was just thinking, like, there are a lot of parents, and like the moms, they're like, to me, their number one goal, of course, putting their oxygen mask on, but is to help their children, raise them till they're 18, send them off the wings. And I notice a lot of women I'm meeting are, after their children, they lost their sense of their identity, like not just as a mom, but who they are and how to help them find themselves. Have you worked with women in those scenarios?
Yeah, it's funny because I started out with, well, what was kind of came to me in the beginning was women who definitely were empty nesters. So they're like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I don't even know who I am anymore. And, what's my next step in this, in this journey? And then what happened is those women started to bring their children. And so I had like teenagers with their moms. And so there was this growth and this a new level of communication and respect and understanding between the young female and the adult female. And then, of course, that of course is like, ripples out into the many generations. I loved it when the teenagers came because of course I had young teenagers at the time, and God, they're like sponges, So
Oh yeah, and they're younger, more open. And I
yeah.
noticed as my daughter did her own journey when she was younger, she didn't want to medicate for anxiety and depression. She's actually worked with some healers and a female shaman for years. She's now 21 and such an intuitive healer, but it's so great because we could speak the same language. And as I'm healing my traumas, she doesn't have to carry them on. And then it's one thing for me to guide my husband, it's harder, but definitely when your daughter comes to you and says, Dad, you're having a karmic issue that's affecting me, and really helping the man. And and I said, how can you say no? You can't say no to your daughter. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So it has been so great speaking with you. And I love what you're doing with everyone that you're working with. And I love how you're creating these women's groups. So you do women's groups, but you also do one-on-one sessions still. Is that correct?
Yes, I really enjoy doing the one-on-one. It's really when the light language comes through specifically for that soul that's sitting in front of me. And there's so many. What I love about this work and the individual work is that every single soul is their own expression, has their own information and ripple that they come with that I get to like experience through my heart. And to be able to, so let me just tell you a quick story. My parents used to tell me, I was the oldest of quite a few, and my parents would always tell me, like, well, Terry, you got a big heart. You got a big heart. And where my sister, she was the boss, and my brother was this, and, the doctor, and my other one was the lawyer. And, well, Terry, you have a big heart. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with a big heart? Like, seriously, I mean, could you give me something a little more concrete? And, but I kept asking Spirit, like, please, like, guide me to how I'm supposed to use this as my occupation or my tool to give back. And I feel completely honored and blessed to sit with every soul that comes to me individually, because I can feel the depths of their heart, the depths of their experiences, and really feel and create a shift in their energy centers and emotionally, mentally, physically, change their vibration within their DNA and cellular structures. So completely honored to do individual sessions.
And if somebody doesn't believe in a higher power, God, and they're open to working with you, is it still effective?
Of course. Yeah. The way that, well, first of all, every person that we come in contact with, is meant to be. And so just like you and I coming together when we did 2 years ago, I believe we're meant to be in each other's lives. And whether somebody comes to me for a group or for individual or one time or for a series, Spirit delivers exactly what that soul, what that human needs in that divine moment.
Beautiful. So if you can go back and tell your younger self, maybe in your teenage years, give her some advice, what would you tell her?
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm a teenager all over again.
Well, that could be a good thing, right? If we're young at
I
heart.
don't know. I don't know. I like, I wish what I wish I could have told my younger self is that life really is an ebb and flow. And there are moments when we are on our high, and there's moments when we're at our low. And both of them are equally powerful and needed and are a divine gift. Because I think we get so, and this is part of my own mental health challenges, is that, I put these expectations of, oh, I'm supposed to be this and that and this and that. And it's not just my expectations, it's this generational expression that's come from my lineage of, you're supposed to do A, B, C, and D. And then once you haven't done that, you're like, well, then who am I? And of course, those moments of when we're questioning who am I are just as powerful as the times when you're standing in front of 35, 40 women and holding space for them to heal. So I wish that I was kinder to myself. I wish that I would accept those moments of when I feel, challenged. And
Right.
Yeah,
being part of the journey. I love that. And it's so interesting, if you have parents that are very, if they're successful and they push their children to be successful and they don't, and what their version of success is. To me, I told my husband, like, our kids are happy. That's it. Happy and healthy, not wealthy. Like, if my child is happy, non-suicidal, rides a bike to work, whatever it is, as long as they're happy and healthy. And that's really important for our mental health. So I love that. Really, wow, how beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Best way is my website, which is Tara Ott at taraleeott.com. TaraleeOtt.com.
I love it. Sounds like a song.
I know.
Tara, and we'll list that link in the show information as well.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Is there anything you'd like to end up and share with our friends before we go?
I just want to say, like, how grateful I am to, number one, have the opportunity, but number two, to really be a part of the Hugs and the L Foundation, because it's so needed. It's so needed right now, and the work that you're doing is huge. And I just wanted to, like, really share how much gratitude and appreciation that I have for everything that you do. So
thank you so much. And I'm grateful to you and all of our healers. We were just asked last week by one of the larger hospitals if we would put together a presentation to share with their therapists. There are a lot of times they have clients that see and hear a spirit, and, instead of the therapist judging them or thinking they're crazy, having a different type of understanding. So to me, that was like, we just won the jackpot. It was so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm so
congratulations.
Well, to all of us, thank you. I'm just really glad that people are starting to shift, because you know what? Our clients, our friends, our patients are suffering. And, the truth is the truth. And if we could help them, medication and talk therapy aren't the only ways. And a lot of times you need this complementary understanding and healing. So Tara, to you and all of our friends out there, I just want to remind you that you are amazing.
Thank you so much. Be kind to yourself. That's what I say. Be kind to yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Wellness. This podcast has been brought to you by the Hugs for Life Healing Center, a division of the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If you would like to listen to more conversations like this, we invite you to subscribe to our mailing list at www.elfempowers.org to be notified when our weekly episodes are published. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you our next conversation on Let's Talk Wellness.